Please join me in welcoming an amazing giving volunteer for this community, Janet Ayers.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that very kind introduction. If you will notice, I'm standing away from the podium. I didn't know that I was going to be supplied with a magic black box. So normally when I speak, I try not to be in front of the podium because all you see is a head and that's it. So that being said, I'm still going to not use the magic box and stand over here, but I am very honored to be here today among such a distinguished group of people. Many of you all I know, and the honorees, I'm just excited to be here. Those of you all that are involved in fundraising and in the world of philanthropy, you all are all award winners. Everybody in this room is an award winner. And your commitment to doing good deeds, your caring spirit, your willingness to share, and your generosity affects the lives of hundreds of people on a daily basis. Jim and I are so honored to have been recognized by this group in the past, so we'd like to say thank you to the Association of Fundraising Professionals. We are certainly glad to be included in this group, but really more important, you all serve as a place where we can learn from each other, where we can share our ideas, where we can join together and leverage our resources so we can do good deeds that affect our communities and the world in which we live. So what I thought I would talk about today for just a few minutes is about just that, good deeds, before we recognize our honorees. Like many of you in this room, my life has been guided by the roadmap that's been provided to me by the Bible. And so every day I do a daily devotional, and one of those devotionals, the title stayed with me, and it was Give It Away. And that devotional referenced a passage out of 1 Timothy that said, commend them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share. So when I look out at this audience and I see all these faces that I know that you are fellow travelers along that road where we work to be rich in good deeds with a spirit of giving and sharing. It's the compilation of those three words, deed, generosity, and sharing, that helps me define philanthropy. But you know, just doing good deeds isn't enough. Just filling our life with good deeds, we can all write checks, that's a good deed. We do it every day. But to whom much is given, much is required. The concept of giving and doing good deeds exists in all religions. In Judaism, it's tzedakah. It's an obligation to do charitable work. As I understand it, tzedakah means righteous, faithfulness, and justice. One form of tzedakah, or mizbah justice, was to give gifts or loans or partnerships that enabled the recipients to be able to take care of themselves and lead a flourishing life. In the Islamic faith, it's called zakat, or an obligation for those of means to give to those of lesser means, or the general charitable work of sadaqat. For Buddhists, it's dana, self-giving, that you give without an anticipation of a return to the person that gave the gift. But you know what I find remarkable about all of that is across such diverse religious traditions stands the common practice of giving and sharing. Giving and sharing to a larger community beyond one's own appetites or goals. You know, when I was growing up, my parents taught me two things, or there were two things they made sure that I understood. One, that I was going to college and I was going to get an education so that I could afford to take care of myself, to have a comfortable life. And probably if Dr. Tom was here to tell you to get me off of his payroll. The other thing that my parents taught me, though, was that I had an obligation to give back. And I was fortunate enough that I witnessed that generosity on a daily basis. I remember people telling me how generous my little grandfather was. And I was probably about 5 years old, and I remember being with him and literally seeing him give a man the shirt off of his back. I raised my own daughter with that same set of beliefs. When she would have birthday parties, she would have her friends bring canned goods to give to those in need, rather than having them bring her gifts that she didn't need. I am very proud of her because I know that she knows that giving back is part of her daily life, but that she also knows that it's more than giving money. It's also about giving equally of her heart and of her time. But all of us in this room know that more often than not, grand deeds take large amounts of money. So when I say this next statement, those of you all that know my husband Jim will not find this out of character at all. He is the master of leveraging. For those of y'all that don't know about the Ayers Foundation, I'm going to give you a brief history of how it began. Two things happened in Jim's life. The first, he tragically lost his brother in a farming accident, and it changed the course of how Jim perceived his life. The second thing that happened was, as he was flipping through the news channels, he saw a story about a man in Texas who had been very successful, and he gave back to his community, and he wanted to do something. So that community where he was raised and where he operated a business, he decided to provide scholarships to those high school students so they could go on to college. So the idea of the Ayers Foundation came to life. Jim invested in counselors to work with high school students and their families so that they could continue their education past high school. The other thing that he did was we provided last dollar scholarships. What that meant was that those counselors were charged with the responsibility of finding outside scholarships too. I am happy to say that all these years later, we've sent over 3,000 students to school, and for every dollar that we provide in scholarships, our counselors find $4. That is the kind of leveraging that yields major dividends. It's the kind of investing I know that all of you all do in this room. It's the kind of investing that enables us to be better stewards of our resources. And you know, I always reluctantly share our personal story, but I do it not to focus on our own lives, but to really emphasize the fact that everybody in this room, without exception, has a story, a personal story of why they give. After all, if a man in Texas hadn't told his story, he wouldn't have inspired a man in Tennessee to create an amazing scholarship program. So in a few minutes, we're going to hear the great stories of our honorees and of their giving hearts. And I want to just say a personal note on part about the giving heart. I know that Miss Brenda Lee is here to do an introduction, and she doesn't even know that I know this story, but I want to tell you a personal thank you about here is someone who generously gave of her time and of her heart, that when she received a phone call about a patient in Erwin, Tennessee, who was about to celebrate their 110th birthday, she picked up the phone and called and sang happy birthday. Not only did she bless that 110-year-old, she blessed the other patients who listened. You were on speakerphone. And the staff. And it's a small community, so you can imagine for a country music legend to take the time to do that, that whole community, you made smile October 23rd, so thank you. So that's why we share those stories, so that when we're together in a group and our individual desires to give back and to make it a better place, we're able to leverage our resources and join our efforts so that we can create a larger, more sustainable impact. So you see, it's not really about one story. It's about the collective stories that are represented around this room today of the amazing work that is being done here and beyond. That truly, to me, is the difference between charity and philanthropy. Philanthropy is thoughtful giving. Just like Jim, he's flipping through the news channels. I was flipping through and I saw a special on Oprah. It tells you the things that we watch that are different, I'll confess. But it was a great interview about her philanthropic giving. And something I found interesting about what she said was that one of her biggest mistakes was emotional giving. So when she said that, I was really intrigued and I listened to the whole interview. But then she proceeded to tell her story. She started out, grew up very, very poor. I mean, really poor, according to her. One Christmas, her mother told her there would be no Santa, no gifts. Her angst didn't come from the fact that she would receive no gifts. It was because she didn't know what story she would tell her classmates when she went back to school of what she got for Christmas. Late that Christmas Eve, nuns delivered presents to her and her family. She said that the sense of relief that she didn't have to create a story and that sense of awe that somebody knew her needs changed her life. It was that moment that her giving spirit was born, and she knew she wanted to recreate that moment for others. All these years later, when she created a school for girls in Africa, she will say that it was born from that moment, and it came from her heart. The other thing she said is that her emotion and her desire to give back has been and will continue to be her driving force, but that it takes infrastructure. The school failed to begin with because of the lack of leadership and infrastructure, not from the lack of desire. So whether we get our sense of giving from our upbringing, our faith, an event that changed our course in our life of how we viewed our life, or a combination of all those things, philanthropy starts in your heart. In order for it to be successful, though, our hearts and our minds must grow together. Investing in something you believe in, joining like forces with people so that you can leverage your investment to create a greater impact. Investing in something that has the capability of lasting into the future. On my desk sits a box that the artist Sylvia Hyman made. It's a porcelain replica of a tzedakah box. And coming out of the top of it are $20, $50, $100 bills. And on the side in Hebrew it says, "Give to charity." And on the top it says, "Recycle your money." It is a constant reminder of my friend Sylvia, and it's a constant reminder to me to be intense and intentional about my recycling. Good deeds, generosity, tzedakah, zakat, dana, or as Sylvia Hyman put it, recycle your money. I'm sure you all see the logos up here on the screen, and you see a tree and the leaves are in the shape of a heart. But if you look at the hearts really close, they're fingerprints, 2 distinct fingerprints. God tells us that we leave a mark on this earth. The lives we influence, the life we lead, the things we touch. Working together, let's make sure that the fingerprints we leave behind are in the shape of a heart. We can change this world collectively with a giving heart. I am so thankful to be included and invited for this day to recognize National Philanthropy Day. Congratulations to the honorees. And to those of you all I know that will be honored in the future, thank you.